Marcus Cole grabbed the sawed-off shotgun barrel with his bare hand and pushed it away from the woman's face like he was swatting a fly. The gunman screamed. Marcus didn't blink. He looked the robber dead in the eyes and said, "Son, your finger's on the trigger guard wrong. You'll break your wrist before you break anything else." A black single father. A night shift waiter making $12 an hour. And he just disarmed a robbery without raising his voice. But the woman he saved, the CEO of a billion-dollar empire, she wasn't there by accident. She had been looking for him. For 2 years. And the truth behind why? That's the part that'll keep you up tonight. Before we dive in, drop a comment right now with the city you're watching from. I want to see just how far this story travels. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and tap that bell. You don't want to miss what comes next. The coffee was burnt. It was always burnt at Rosie's all-night grill. The machine was older than half the customers, and Rosie herself had given up trying to fix it sometime around 2019. But nobody came to Rosie's for the coffee. They came because it was open. 2 a.m, rain hammering Chicago like God had a grudge. Rosie's was the only light on for 6 blocks. Marcus Cole filled the pot, set it on the warmer, and wiped his hands on his apron. "Order up, Marcus," Rosie's voice came from the kitchen window. 70 years old, arms like a longshoreman, and a voice that could cut through a thunderstorm. "Got it." Marcus picked up the plate. Eggs over easy, wheat toast, extra bacon, and carried it to booth 3. The man sitting there was a regular. Eddie Fitzgerald, retired pipe fitter from the South Side. Came in every Tuesday and Thursday after his wife fell asleep watching Jeopardy. "Here you go, Eddie." "Bless you, son." Eddie unfolded his napkin. "You hear about the shooting on Halsted?" "I heard. 3rd one this month." She was soaking wet, no umbrella, and she was wearing a coat that cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. Camel-colored cashmere, tailored sharp. Her heels clicked on the linoleum. The sound was out of place, like a violin in a junkyard. She was mid-30s, sharp cheekbones, dark hair pulled back tight. Her eyes scanned the room fast. Exits, faces, corners. The way someone does when they've been taught to, or when they've been running long enough to learn it on their own. Marcus caught it. He caught everything. It was the one habit he couldn't kill no matter how hard he tried. She sat in the corner booth, booth 6, back to the wall, facing the door. Marcus grabbed a menu and walked over. "Evening, or morning, I guess. What can I get you?" She looked up at him. Her eyes were red. Not crying red, exhaustion red. The kind that comes from not sleeping for days. "Coffee. Black." "Fair warning, our coffee's terrible." "I don't care." "Coming right up." He brought the cup. She wrapped both hands around it, like it was the only warm thing left in the world. He noticed her fingers. No rings, but her right hand had a faint tremor. Not cold. Something else. Marcus set down a small dish of creamers, even though she'd said black. "Didn't ask for those," she said. "No, ma'am, but you look like you haven't eaten in a while. Sometimes the stomach needs something to work with, even if it's just cream and bad coffee." She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. Something shifted behind her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or surprise that someone had noticed. "You always diagnose your customers?" "Only the ones sitting alone at 2 in the morning in a coat that doesn't belong in this zip code." She almost smiled. Almost. "I'm fine." "I know you are." Marcus refilled Eddie's cup on his way back. "Holler if you need anything." He returned to the counter. Rosie was watching from the kitchen window, her eyebrows raised.
"Who's the lady?"
Rosie whispered. "Customer."
"That ain't no regular customer. Look at that coat."
"Rosie, I look at the order, not the coat. You want me to clean the fryer?"
"Don't change the subject on me, Marcus Cole."
He smiled, a small, tired smile, and started wiping down the counter. 1:58 a.m. The woman in booth 6 hadn't touched her coffee. She was staring out the window at the rain like it held answers. Her phone buzzed 3 times on the table. She silenced it every time without looking. Marcus noticed. He also noticed the black SUV that had been parked across the street for the last 11 minutes with its headlights off. He kept wiping the counter. 2:07 a.m. The bell jingled again, hard this time. The door flew open and cracked against the wall. 3 men, hoodies, ski masks, soaked through. The first one, the leader, had a sawed-off shotgun. Cheap model, stock cut rough, probably done with a hacksaw in somebody's garage. The second carried a crowbar. The third was twitching, bouncing on the balls of his feet, eyes too wide behind the mask. High on something that made his pupils eat his irises. "Nobody move! Everybody on the ground! Now!" Eddie dropped his fork. His hands went up. The woman in booth 6 didn't move. Rosie ducked below the kitchen window. Marcus set down the rag. He turned around slowly. "Easy," Marcus said. His voice was low, steady, like he was talking to a spooked horse. "Shut up! Open the register!" "Register's open," Marcus said. "Take the cash. There's maybe 200 in there, probably less. Leave the tip jar. That's mine and Rosie's." The leader marched toward the counter. The shotgun was shaking in his hands. This kid, because that's what he was, a kid, maybe 19, was terrified. Marcus could see it. The rapid breathing. The sweat darkening the mask fabric around his mouth. The way his finger was hovering near the trigger, but not on it. Amateur. "Move! Get out from behind the counter!" "I'm moving." Marcus stepped around slowly, hands visible. "Nobody needs to get hurt over $200. The second gunman, the crowbar, had moved toward Eddie. The old man was frozen, hands still raised. "Give me your wallet, old man." "It's in my coat pocket," Eddie whispered. "Please don't hurt me. I got grandkids." Marcus watched. His jaw tightened. The third one, the twitcher, was moving toward the corner booth, toward the woman. "Hey, pretty lady, what you got in that fancy purse?" The woman looked at him. She didn't flinch, but Marcus saw the tremor in her hand get worse. The twitcher grabbed her purse strap. She held on. "Let go, bitch!" "Hey!" Marcus's voice cut across the diner. The leader swung the shotgun toward him. "Leave her alone. She's got nothing you want." "Shut your mouth!" The leader shoved the sawed-off into Marcus's face. The barrel pressed against his cheek. Cold metal, gun oil, rust. Marcus looked down the barrel.
His heartbeat didn't change. 12 years ago, he'd had a Russian-made AK-47 pressed against his temple in a concrete room in Aleppo. He'd talked his way out of that one, too. This was a Tuesday. "I got nothing you want either," Marcus said calmly. "200 in the register, maybe 40 in tips. That's the score. Take it and go before a squad car rolls through. Precinct is 4 blocks from here. Shift change is at 2. That means double the cars on the street right now." "He's bluffing," the crowbar hissed. "Am I?" Marcus asked. "Count the seconds between sirens." "Go ahead." Silence. Then, far off, the wail of a siren. Random. Coincidence. But Marcus didn't blink. "That's your window closing," Marcus said. The leader was rattled. The gun barrel trembled against Marcus's face. "I'll shoot you, man. I swear to God." "No, you won't." "Why the hell not?" "Because you haven't cocked it." The leader froze. "Sawed-off pump action," Marcus said, his voice flat, clinical. "You came in hot, but you didn't rack the slide. There's no shell in the chamber. You pull that trigger right now, and all you get is a click." The leader looked down at the gun. His eyes went wide behind the mask. He hadn't racked it. Marcus was right. The twitcher released the woman's purse. The crowbar backed away from Eddie. "He's lying," the crowbar said. "Waste him." "It's not racked, man!" the leader shrieked, panicking, trying to pump the action with one hand while keeping it aimed. Marcus moved. Not fast, not violent, just efficient. He put his hand on the barrel, palm flat, firm, and pushed it sideways, away from his face, away from the room. The leader stumbled. Marcus stepped into a space and with one hand stripped the shotgun out of the kid's grip like taking a toy from a child. The leader gasped. Marcus held the weapon at his side, barrel pointed at the floor. The 3 men stared at him. A 40-something black man in a stained apron holding their shotgun, looking at them like a tired father looking at sons who had disappointed him. "Get out," Marcus said. The twitcher bolted first. The crowbar followed. The leader stood there, frozen, trembling. Marcus looked at him. Really looked. Under the mask, the kid had acne scars and scared, wet eyes. "How old are you?" The kid didn't answer. "I asked you a question." 19, the kid choked. "You got a mama?" A pause, then a nod. "Go home to her, right now, and don't come back to this side of town carrying something you don't know how to use." Marcus ejected the shells from the shotgun, 3 of them, and set them on the counter. He handed the empty weapon back to the kid. "Take this with you. I don't want it in this building." The kid grabbed it and ran. The door banged shut. Rain poured in for a second before it closed. Silence. Eddie let out a breath he'd been holding for 2 minutes. "Sweet Jesus, Marcus." Rosie popped up from behind the kitchen window. "Marcus, are you out of your damn mind?"
"Everybody okay?" Marcus asked, his voice returning to its normal, quiet register. He walked behind the counter, picked up the rag, and started wiping again, like nothing happened.
"Okay, that man had a gun."
Rosie was shaking. It wasn't loaded properly.
"How the hell did you know that?"
Lucky guess. Marcus poured a fresh cup of coffee, hand steady, perfectly steady, and walked it over to Eddie. "On the house. You all right?" Eddie's eyes were shining.
"Son, who the hell are you?"
"I'm the guy who pours your coffee, Eddie. Drink up." Marcus turned toward booth 6. The woman was still sitting there. She hadn't moved during the entire robbery, not an inch.
but she was staring at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. It wasn't fear. It wasn't gratitude. It was something deeper. Something that looked a lot like confirmation.
"You all right, ma'am? You didn't call the police," she said. "I will, after things settle. You disarmed a man with a shotgun, and you didn't even raise your voice. Wasn't loaded properly. You didn't know that for certain." Marcus paused. He met her eyes. "No, ma'am, I didn't." She held his gaze. The tremor in her hand was gone now. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus. And yours?" "Victoria Chen." Marcus didn't react, but somewhere deep in his gut, in the place where old instincts never quite die, a wire tripped. "Miss Chen, can I get you a warm-up on that coffee?" "I'd like that." He poured. She watched his hands. "You've done that before," she said. "Not the coffee, the other thing." "I've poured a lot of coffee." "You took that gun apart in your head before you touched it. I saw your eyes. You calculated the weight, the model, and the load status in under 3 seconds." Marcus set the pot down. He looked at her. Steady. Careful. "You're observant." "It's why I'm still alive," Victoria said. She took a sip. "I need to talk to you, Marcus. Not here. Not now. But soon." "I get off at 6. "No, I mean I need to talk to you about something that isn't coffee." "Ma'am, with respect, I don't know you." "You knew those gunmen. You read their body language, their equipment, their psychological state, and you neutralized the situation without a weapon. That's not a waiter skill. That's not a lucky guess." She leaned forward. "I know what that is. And I need it." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I appreciate the kind words, Miss Chen, but I'm just a guy working the late shift, so I can be home when my daughter wakes up for school. That's the whole story." He walked away. Victoria watched him go. She reached for her phone and typed a message. "It's him. Confirmed." Marcus went into the kitchen. Rosie was on the phone with 911, talking fast. The grill was still sizzling. The overhead light buzzed. He leaned against the walk-in cooler and closed his eyes. His hands were shaking now, both of them. Violent tremors that ran from his fingers to his wrists to his elbows. He pressed them against his thighs and breathed. In through the nose, 4 counts, hold. Out through the mouth, 8 counts. He reached for his phone. "Miss D, is Zoe still asleep?" The reply came fast. "Out like a light. Had a good night. You okay, Marcus?" "I'm fine. Tell her Daddy loves her if she wakes up." He put the phone away. He looked at his hands, still shaking. He didn't go back out for 4 minutes. When he did, the shaking had stopped. His face was calm. His apron was straight. The police arrived at 2:31. 2 officers. They took statements. Eddie talked for 20 minutes, waving his arms, telling the story like it was the Alamo. Rosie gave them coffee and complained about response times. Marcus gave his statement in 6 sentences. The officers didn't press. Before tonight. I've been looking for you for 2 years, Marcus." The diner was quiet. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights in the rain. "Who are you?" Marcus asked. Not the polite version. The real version. The one that came from a place deeper than Rosie's all-night grill. "I'm James Chen's daughter." Marcus didn't move. His face didn't change, but something behind his eyes collapsed. A wall he'd built brick by brick for 4 years, and for just a second, she saw the man behind the apron. The man who had seen things that burnt coffee and tip jars couldn't wash away. "James Chen is dead," Marcus said quietly. "Yes, he died 14 months ago. Cancer." Victoria's voice cracked for the first time. "But before he died, he told me something. He said, if you're ever in trouble, real trouble, the kind where money and lawyers won't save you, find a man named Marcus Cole. He's the only honest man I ever met, and he saved my life when no one else would." Marcus leaned the mop against the counter. "Your father was a good man, Miss Chen." "He said you'd say that." "What do you want?" "I'm in trouble, Marcus, the kind my father warned me about, and I think someone is going to kill me." The rain hammered harder. The neon sign in the window, open 24 hours, flickered once and held. Marcus looked at this woman. He saw the fear she was trying to hide. He saw the exhaustion she couldn't. He saw James Chen's eyes in her face. The same sharp intelligence, the same stubborn jaw. And he saw the black SUV still parked across the street. Headlights off, engine running. "How long has that car been following you?" Marcus asked. Victoria's composure cracked. "You saw it?" "I saw it 11 minutes before you walked in. How long?" 3 days. Marcus untied his apron. He folded it neatly and set it on the counter. He picked up the phone and dialed. "Miss D? I'm sorry to wake you. Something came up. Can Zoe stay with you until I call?" I know. I'm sorry. I'll explain when I can. Thank you." He hung up. He looked at Victoria. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." Victoria sat back down in booth 6. Marcus slid in across from her. And in a rundown diner on Chicago's South Side, at 3 in the morning, with rain pounding the glass and a black SUV watching from the shadows, a waitress and a CEO began the conversation that would change both of their lives forever. Marcus Cole had been invisible for 4 years. He was about to become the most dangerous man in Chicago. Victoria didn't start at the beginning. She started at the end. 3 weeks ago, someone put a dead cat on my doorstep. Throat cut. Note pinned to it that said, "Curiosity." Marcus didn't react. He sat across from her in booth 6, with his hands folded on the table, listening the way he'd been trained to listen. Not just to words, but to breathing patterns, micro-expressions, the things people said between sentences. "Before that," Victoria continued, "my brakes failed on Lakeshore Drive. My mechanic said the line had been cut. Clean cut. Professional." "You file a police report?" "I filed 2. They opened a case. Nothing happened. My security team investigated." "And?" "My security team is the problem." Victoria's voice dropped. 3 months ago, I discovered financial irregularities at Aegis Corp. Large transfers. 200 million over 18 months. Routed through shell companies in Cyprus, the Caymans, and Dubai. The transfers were authorized by my CFO, Richard Hale. "So fire him. Call the FBI." "I can't. Richard has the board. He's been buying loyalty for years. If I go to the FBI, he'll know within hours. He has contacts everywhere. And the money isn't just embezzlement, Marcus. It's being laundered for Sergei Volkov. Marcus's expression didn't change, but his fingers pressed harder against the table. Volkov. Bratva. You know the name. Everybody in intelligence knew the name. Volkov ran weapons through Syria, Afghanistan, and half of Eastern Europe. Last I heard, he'd moved into financial crime. Tech companies. Clean money. He moved into my company. Victoria's jaw tightened. Richard opened the door for him. And now Volkov owns 30% of Aegis through offshore proxies. If I go public, Volkov's people will kill me before the indictment hits. If I stay quiet, Richard takes the company and I become irrelevant. Or dead, whichever is more convenient. Why me? I told you. My father. Your father was grateful. Gratitude isn't a qualification. My father was the smartest man I ever knew, and he spent the last year of his life telling me one name. Yours. Victoria leaned forward. He said you pulled him out of a building in Beirut when his security team was dead, and the extraction helicopter was 40 minutes away. He said you carried him on your back for 2 miles through hostile territory with a dislocated shoulder. He said you refused payment afterward. It was my job. It was beyond your job, and you know it. The State Department disavowed the mission. Your unit was never there. 3 of your men died, and you disappeared. Marcus was quiet for a long time. The coffee between them had gone cold. Miss Chen, I appreciate what your father meant to you. He was a brave man, and I was honored to help him. But that was another life. I'm not that person anymore. I have a daughter. She's 7 years old, and she thinks I make pancakes and pour coffee for a living. That's the man I am now. The man you are now just disarmed a shotgun-wielding robber in a diner without breaking a sweat. That was instinct. Exactly. That's what I need. Your instincts. Marcus shook his head. Find a private security firm. Blackwater alumni are a dime a dozen in Chicago. I can't trust anyone I hire through normal channels. Richard will buy them or Volkov will threaten them. I need someone outside the system, someone no one knows, someone who doesn't exist on paper. She paused. Someone invisible. The word landed hard. Marcus stood up. I'm sorry about your situation, Miss Chen. I hope you find the help you need. He walked behind the counter and started closing out the register. Victoria watched him for a moment, then stood. She placed a business card on the table, slid her coat tighter, and walked toward the door. She stopped with her hand on the handle. Marcus, that SUV across the street. It's not mine. Then she was gone. The Bentley pulled away. The rain swallowed its taillights. Marcus looked through the window at the black SUV. It sat there for another 4 minutes. Then it pulled away too, heading in the same direction Victoria had gone. He finished closing. He locked up. He walked 3 blocks to the L station and rode the train home, watching his reflection in the dark glass. He got to the apartment at 5:48 a.m. Miss Dolores was asleep on the couch with the television on low. Zoe was in her bed, curled around a stuffed elephant named Gerald. Marcus stood in her doorway. He watched her breathe. 7 years old. Gap-toothed smile. Braids that Miss Dolores did every Sunday because Marcus still couldn't get them right no matter how many YouTube tutorials he watched. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She talked to pigeons like they were people. She was the only thing in this world that Marcus Cole would die for, and the only thing that made him afraid to. He closed her door softly and sat down at the kitchen table. He put his head in his hands. James Chen, Beirut,
The building with no lights and the sound of gunfire from every direction. Ramirez catching a round in the neck. Davis stepping on the IED that wasn't on the map. Kowalski bleeding out in the stairwell, saying, "Tell my wife, tell my wife, tell my wife." Marcus had carried James Chen out. Dislocated shoulder, cracked ribs, a piece of shrapnel in his thigh he didn't feel until 2 days later. He delivered the asset to extraction, and then he sat in the helicopter and watched the city burn below him. And he thought, "I'm done." He was done. He was supposed to be done. He went to bed. He didn't sleep. The next morning, Marcus made pancakes, chocolate chip, Zoe's favorite. She sat at the table in her school uniform, swinging her legs because they didn't reach the floor. "Daddy, can elephants swim?" "Yes, baby. They're good swimmers." "Can Gerald swim?" "Gerald is a stuffed animal." "But if he was real?" "If Gerald was real, he'd be the Michael Phelps of elephants." Zoe laughed. It was the sound that kept Marcus alive. He walked her to school. Postscript 117, 4 blocks from the apartment. He watched her run through the gate, backpack bouncing, braids flying. She turned and waved. He waved back. He stood there until she was inside. Then he walked home. At 11:15 a.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Cole, this is David Park. I'm General Counsel for Aegis Corporation and a close advisor to Victoria Chen. She asked me to reach out." She shouldn't have. "I understand your hesitation. Victoria mentioned you declined her offer. I'm calling to ask you to reconsider." "I was clear, Mr. Park." "You were, but I want to make sure you're making an informed decision. The position is head of personal security, $15,000 a week, full medical and dental, for you and your daughter. Relocation to a secure apartment in Lincoln Park. Private school enrollment for your child if you want it." Marcus closed his eyes. 15,000 a week. He made 500 on a good week at Rosie's. "I'm not interested." "Can I ask why?" "Because I know where that money comes from, and I know what it costs. The money comes from Victoria Chen's personal accounts, not from the company, not from anything connected to whatever you're imagining." "Mr. Park, I've been in rooms with people who have money and power and problems. The problems always become your problems, and then people get hurt." "People are already getting hurt, Mr. Cole. Victoria is in danger, real, imminent danger. She's not asking you to fight a war. She's asking you to help her survive long enough to fight her own." Marcus was quiet. "Think about it," David said. "You have my number." He hung up. Marcus spent the afternoon at the library while Zoe was in school. He used a public terminal, never his phone, never anything traceable, and searched for Aegis Corporation, Victoria Chen, Richard Hale, and Sergei Volkov. What he found confirmed everything Victoria had told him. Aegis was a financial technology giant. Victoria had taken over as CEO 2 years ago after her father's death. Stock price was down. Board was restless. Richard Hale had been CFO for 11 years, longer than Victoria had been in the building. He was connected. Political fundraisers, charity galas, golf with senators. Volkov was harder to find. The man was a ghost in public records. But Marcus knew other ways to look. Old contacts. Coded messages on forums that hadn't changed since he'd left the game. Volkov was in Chicago. Had been for at least a year. He was using Aegis as a laundromat for Eastern European money, and he had muscle on the ground. Marcus cleared his browser history, wiped the terminal, and picked up Zoe from school. They walked home the long way. Zoe chattered about her day. A boy named Tyler had eaten glue. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had a new puppy, and the cafeteria pizza was scientifically disgusting. Marcus listened. He held her hand. He checked every window of every parked car on every block. They turned onto Ashland Avenue. Their building was 3 blocks ahead. Marcus saw it. A black SUV. Same model as the one outside Rosie's. Parked across the street from PS 117. Not outside their apartment. Outside Zoe's school. His grip on her hand tightened. "Daddy, you're squeezing." "Sorry, baby girl. Daddy's just... Let's walk a little faster, okay? Race you to the door." "You always let me win." "That's because you're faster than me." They got inside. Marcus double-locked the door. He pulled the shade on every window. He sat Zoe down with her coloring books and turned on her favorite show. Then he went into the bathroom, closed the door, and called Miss Dolores. "Miss D, can you come get Zoe? I need you to take her to your sister's place in Evanston. Tonight." "Marcus, what's going on?" "I can't explain right now. Please." "You're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. I'll explain everything, but right now, I need Zoe somewhere that's not this apartment and not this neighborhood. Can you do that for me?" Silence. Then, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Thank you. I love you, Miss D." "I love you too, baby. Whatever this is, you be careful." He hung up. He looked at himself in the cracked bathroom mirror. The man staring back at him was not a waiter. The man staring back had cold eyes and the set jaw, and the quiet fury of a father whose child had been threatened. He walked out of the bathroom. Zoe was coloring a picture of a purple elephant. "Baby girl, you're going to stay with Miss D tonight. Maybe a couple of nights." "How come?" "Daddy has to work some extra shifts." "Can I bring Gerald?" "You can bring Gerald." "Okay." She didn't question it. 7 years old and already accustomed to adapting. It broke his heart. Miss Dolores came. Marcus hugged Zoe tight. Too tight, but she didn't complain. He kissed her forehead. He watched them drive away in Miss Dolores's old Buick. Then he went back inside. He pulled a chair into the center of the room and sat down. He stared at the wall. On the wall was a framed drawing Zoe had made for Father's Day. Stick figures, a tall one and a short one, holding hands. Underneath, in crooked 7-year-old handwriting, "My daddy is the bravest." Marcus picked up his phone. He dialed Victoria Chen's number from the business card he'd told himself he'd throw away. She answered on the second ring. "Miss Chen, the people watching you. They found my daughter's school." Silence. They left an SUV outside PS 117. Same model that was outside the diner. "Oh God, Marcus, Don't apologize. Just answer me one question." "Anything." "Is David Park trustworthy?" "David? He's been with me since law school. He's family. Why?" Marcus paused. Something in his gut stirred. The same instinct that had saved him in 12 countries and cost him everything else. "No reason. When do I start?" "Tomorrow. I'll send a car." "Don't send a car. I'll come to you. Text me the address. And Miss Chen, Victoria, nobody knows about my daughter. Not your security team, not your board, not your lawyer. Nobody. She doesn't exist in connection to me. That's the condition." "Done. One more thing." "Yes?" "I'm not wearing a suit." Victoria almost laughed. "We'll discuss the dress code." He hung up. He went to the closet. In the back, behind winter coats and old shoes, was a duffel bag he hadn't opened in 4 years. He unzipped it. Inside, a Glock 19 with 3 loaded magazines, a tactical knife, a set of false IDs and 3 names, a satellite phone, and a photograph, creased and worn, of 3 men in desert fatigues, arms around each other, grinning in front of a Humvee. Ramirez, Davis, and Kowalski. The dead. His dead. Marcus picked up the photograph. He looked at their faces. "I'm sorry, brothers," he said quietly. "I tried to stay out." He put the photograph back. He took the Glock, checked the magazine, racked the slide, and tucked it into his waistband. Then he sat back down and stared at Zoe's drawing on the wall. "My daddy is the bravest." He hoped she was right. The next morning, Marcus walked into the lobby of the Aegis Corp Tower in the financial district. He was wearing black jeans, a black jacket, and boots. Every security guard in the building tracked him from the moment he entered. "I'm here for Victoria Chen," he told the front desk. The receptionist looked him up and down. "Do you have an appointment?" "She's expecting me." "Name?" "Marcus Cole." The receptionist typed. Her eyebrows rose. "60th floor, express elevator on your left. You're cleared for full access." Marcus rode the elevator alone. He watched the numbers climb. When the doors opened, a man was waiting for him. Mid-40s, Korean-American, expensive suit, polished shoes. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Marcus." "David Park, we spoke on the phone?" Marcus shook his hand. David's grip was firm but calculated, the handshake of a man who practiced sincerity. "Victoria's in the boardroom. Follow me." They walked through a floor of glass offices and silent efficiency. Every surface was clean. Every person moved with purpose. It smelled like money and ambition. David walked close. "I want you to know, I pushed for this hire. Victoria trusts her father's judgment, and so do I." "I appreciate that. I also want to be upfront. Some people here won't welcome you. Richard Hale has allies on every floor. Be careful who you talk to." "I'm always careful." David stopped at a glass door. "One more thing, Marcus. Victoria is more than a client to me. She's the closest thing I have to a sister. If anything happens to her on your watch, nothing will happen to her on my watch, Mr. Park." David studied him for a moment, then nodded and opened the door. Victoria was standing at the window, phone to her ear. She turned when they entered. She was wearing a dark gray suit, her hair pulled back, her posture straight. In the daylight, in this building, she looked nothing like the exhausted woman from the diner. She looked like a general. She hung up the phone. "Marcus, thank you for coming." "Show me the building's security layout. Entry points, camera blind spots, guard rotations. I want personnel files on every member of your current security team. I want Richard Hale's schedule for the last 6 months. And I need a private office with no windows." Victoria blinked. David raised an eyebrow. "I thought we'd start with a tour," David said. "We'll start with the vulnerabilities," Marcus replied. "Tours don't stop bullets." Victoria looked at David. David shrugged. "Get him what he needs," Victoria said. Marcus spent the next 8 hours inside Aegis Corp, and by the end of the day, he had found 17 security flaws that could get Victoria Chen killed. The stairwell cameras on floors 12 and 31 had dead zones. The loading dock was accessible with a standard maintenance key. Her personal elevator had no emergency override. 2 of her 6 bodyguards had been hired through a firm with known Bratva connections. He fired them both before sundown. He also found something else, something he wasn't looking for. At 6 p.m., as the building emptied, Marcus passed David Park's corner office. The door was ajar. David was on the phone, speaking low, in a tone Marcus recognized, the voice of a man who was performing for someone he feared. I told you, he's nobody. An ex-military burnout she found in a diner. He's not a problem. Pause. No, she trusts me completely. That hasn't changed. The timeline is the same. Pause. I understand. Tell Hale I'll handle it. David hung up. Marcus kept walking. His face betrayed nothing, but inside a clock had started ticking. David Park was on the phone with someone connected to Richard Hale. David Park, Victoria's most trusted advisor. The man she called family. Marcus didn't go to Victoria. Not yet. He didn't have proof. And in his experience, a premature accusation was more dangerous than the betrayal itself. If he was wrong, he'd lose Victoria's trust. If he was right, and he was almost certain he was right, then David would know he'd been discovered, and the timeline for whatever they were planning would accelerate. Marcus needed to be patient. He needed to watch. He needed to be what he'd always been. Invisible. That night, he called Zoe from the parking garage. She picked up on Miss Dolores's phone. "Daddy! Hey, baby girl. How's Evanston?" "Miss D's sister has a cat named Beans. He's fat and he sleeps on my face." Marcus laughed. A real laugh. The first one in days. "That sounds terrible." "It's actually great. When are you coming home?" "Soon, baby. Real soon." "Promise?" "I promise. You be good, okay? Listen to Miss D." "I always listen." "That is historically inaccurate, Zoe Cole." She giggled. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you more than everything." He hung up. He sat in the car in the dark garage for a long time. Above him, 60 stories of glass and steel and secrets. Behind him, a diner he'd never go back to. Ahead of him, something he'd sworn he'd left buried in the desert with his dead friends. Marcus Cole started the engine and drove into the Chicago night. The war he'd been running from had found him. And this time, his daughter's face was in the crosshairs. 2 weeks changed everything and nothing at all. Marcus settled into Aegis Corp the way water settles into cracks. Quietly, completely, finding every gap and every weakness. He rewired the security protocols from the ground up. New cameras, new rotations, encrypted communication channels for Victoria's inner circle. Background checks on every employee who had floor access above the 40th level. He worked 18-hour days. He slept in the private office Victoria had given him. No windows, just the way he'd asked. A cot, a laptop, and a locked drawer with a Glock inside. And every night, no matter how late, he called Zoe. "Daddy, Beans tried to eat Gerald." "Is Gerald okay?" "He lost an ear. Miss D's sister sewed it back on, but it's crooked now." "Battle scars. Gerald's a warrior." "When are you coming to get me?" "Soon, baby." "You keep saying soon." "I know. I'm sorry." "Are you in trouble, Daddy?" Marcus closed his eyes. 7 years old, and she already knew the sound of a lie. "No, sweetheart. Daddy just has a big project at work. Important stuff. But I'll be there before you know it." "Okay." A pause. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "I don't like it when you're gone." "I don't like it either. I love you, Zoe." "Love you more." Impossible. He hung up and pressed the phone against his forehead. Every instinct told him to get in the car, drive to Evanston, grab his daughter, and disappear. New city, new name, new life. He'd done it before, but the black SUV outside Zoe's school had changed the equation. Whoever was watching knew about her. Running wouldn't make them forget. The only way to protect Zoe was to end the threat at its source.
So Marcus stayed. And he watched David park. David was good. Marcus had to give him that. The man played his role flawlessly. Attentive, loyal, always at Victoria's side with the right advice at the right time. He brought her coffee in the mornings. He stayed late reviewing contracts. He called her V with an easy familiarity that made everyone in the building believe they were siblings in everything but blood. But Marcus saw the cracks. David took phone calls in the parking garage, the one floor with no camera coverage, a blind spot Marcus had flagged but hadn't fixed yet. Intentionally. He wanted David to keep using it. David met with a man in a gray tracksuit twice at a coffee shop on Wacker Drive. Marcus followed on foot both times, staying a block back. The man in the tracksuit had Bratva ink on his neck, a star below the left ear, prison tattoo, Volkov's crew. And David had started asking questions about Marcus. Casual questions, dropped into conversations like loose change. Where did you serve, Marcus? How long were you in? You ever worked private security before? Marcus gave him nothing, smiled, deflected. Let David think he was simple. He's just a soldier, Marcus overheard David tell someone on the phone in the garage. Muscle. He doesn't think strategically. Victoria's wasting money. Good. Let him believe that. On the 15th day, Marcus found the evidence he needed. It was 11 p.m. Victoria had gone home. David was supposed to have left at 9, but his office light was still on. Marcus watched the security feed from his office. David was at his computer, typing fast. Then he plugged in a USB drive. Marcus pulled up the network logs. David was copying files, encrypted financial records. The same accounts Victoria had flagged. The offshore transfers. The Volkov money. David wasn't just aware of the embezzlement. He was managing it. Marcus saved the logs. He copied the footage. He locked it in a secure file on an encrypted drive he kept on his person at all times. Then he waited. The next morning he told Victoria. They were in her office. The door was closed. Marcus had swept the room for listening devices an hour earlier, a habit David probably thought was paranoid. It wasn't paranoid. It was why Marcus found the bug inside the desk lamp 2 days ago and left it there, feeding it useless information. David is working with Hale, Marcus said. No preamble, no softening. Victoria was holding a cup of coffee. Her hand stopped halfway to her mouth. That's not possible. I have footage of him copying your financial files onto an external drive. I have network logs showing the transfers. I have 2 confirmed meetings between David and a known Bratva operative on Wacker Drive. And I have a recorded phone call where he told someone, likely Hale, that the timeline hasn't changed. Victoria set the cup down. Her face went still. Not shocked, not angry. Empty. The way a person looks when the ground opens under them and they haven't started falling yet. David and I went to law school together, she said quietly. He was at my father's funeral. He held my hand. I know. He helped me fight the board when they tried to block my appointment as CEO. He stayed when everyone else left. I know, Victoria. He's my family. Marcus said nothing. He let the silence do the work. Victoria stood up and walked to the window. She pressed her forehead against the glass. 60 stories below, Chicago moved like it always did. Indifferent, relentless. Why? She whispered. Money, probably. Power. Resentment. In my experience, betrayal doesn't need a complicated reason. It just needs an opportunity and a grievance. I gave him everything. Partnership track, equity. I trusted him with... She stopped.
Her voice broke. She pressed her fist against the glass. Marcus stood. He walked over and stood beside her. Not touching, just present. "I need you to keep acting normal," Marcus said. "David can't know we're onto him. If he panics, the timeline accelerates and we lose control." "What timeline? What are they planning?" "I don't know yet, but the file transfer suggests something's happening soon. They're moving assets. That means they're getting ready to either take the company officially or eliminate you as an obstacle." "Eliminate?" Victoria laughed, a short, broken sound. "You mean kill me?" "I mean, I won't let that happen." She looked at him. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set. "What do I do?" "You go to work. You smile at David. You trust me. Can you do that?" "Trust you?" "Yes." Victoria studied his face. Whatever she was looking for, she found it. "My father trusted you. That's enough for me." "Good. Now I need something from you." "What?" "A reason to be in the room when things go down. David's going to make a move soon, probably at an event, somewhere public enough to create chaos, but private enough to control the narrative. I need to be wherever you are. No exceptions." Victoria nodded. "There's a shareholder dinner on Friday. The Peninsula Hotel. Every board member will be there. Richard Hale, David, all of them." "Then I'll be there too." "Marcus," she reached out and gripped his forearm. Her fingers were cold. "If David is really doing this, if this is real, then I have no one. Do you understand? No one." Marcus looked at her hand on his arm. Then he looked at her face. "You have me," he said, "and I don't say that lightly." The shareholder dinner was 3 days away. Marcus used every hour. He called Darnell Hayes, the one man left alive from his unit. Darnell had gone private sector after the Army. Security consulting out of Detroit. He was 6'4", built like a tank, and he owed Marcus his life from a night in Mosul that neither of them talked about. "D, I need you in Chicago. Friday." "What kind of need?" "The kind where you bring your go bag and don't ask questions until you get here." "That kind." A long pause. "I'm on the road by tomorrow morning." "Thank you, brother." "Marcus, you sure about this? You told me you were done." "I was done. Then they took a picture of my daughter outside her school." Silence on the line. Darnell had a son. He understood. "I'll be there by Thursday night." Marcus spent the remaining days mapping the Peninsula Hotel. Service entrances, kitchen access, elevator shafts. He pulled the catering company's employee roster and cross-referenced it with known Bratva associates. He found 2, a dishwasher and a valet, both hired in the last month. They were planting people inside. Friday came. Marcus wore a suit, black. Victoria had insisted. He looked uncomfortable in it, and that was fine. He wanted people to underestimate him. Just the bodyguard, just the hired help. Darnell was positioned outside in a rented sedan, with a clear line of sight to the main entrance and the service exit. He had a Remington 870 under a blanket on the back seat, and enough ammunition to start a small war. "Comms check," Marcus muttered, touching the earpiece hidden beneath his collar. "Loud and clear," Darnell's voice came back. "Parking lot's clean. 2 SUVs arrived 10 minutes ago. Russian plates on the rental stickers. They're here, Marcus." "Copy. Stay on the exits." Victoria arrived in a black gown. She looked untouchable. She greeted the board members with a smile that could have been printed in a magazine. She shook Richard Hale's hand without flinching. Hale was everything Marcus expected. Silver hair, strong handshake, a tan that said, "I golf more than I work." His eyes were sharp, though,
The eyes of a man who counted exits too, just for different reasons. "Victoria, you look wonderful," Hale said, holding her hand a beat too long. "And this is?" "Marcus Cole, my personal security." Hale looked at Marcus the way men like Hale always looked at men like Marcus. Assessing, dismissing, filing away. "Can never be too careful these days," Hale said, smiling. "Enjoy the evening." David Park arrived 15 minutes later. He crossed the room and kissed Victoria on the cheek. "You nervous?" David asked her. "Should I be?" "Ford's restless. Hale's been whispering all week. But we've got this, V. We always do." Marcus watched the exchange from 10 feet away. David's performance was impeccable. The warmth, the familiarity, the casual touch on her elbow. If Marcus hadn't seen the footage, hadn't heard the phone calls, he would have believed every word. The dinner proceeded. Courses were served. Speeches were made. Hale proposed a toast to the future of Aegis that carried an undertone sharp enough to cut glass. At 9:47 p.m., Marcus noticed David checking his phone under the table. His face changed, just for a second. A tightening around the mouth. Then the mask went back on. David leaned over to Victoria. "V, there's been a development. Richard wants to discuss the Singapore deal privately. Upstairs. The hotel has a conference suite on 18. "Tonight? During the dinner?" "He says it's time sensitive. I think he's trying to corner you, but I'll be right there with you. We can handle him." Victoria glanced at Marcus. He gave a micro nod. "Go. I'll be there." "Fine," Victoria said. "Let's get it over with." They stood. Hale was already moving toward the elevators. David walked beside Victoria, his hand on the small of her back. Marcus followed 5 paces behind. The elevator ride was silent. Marcus counted floors. He watched David's reflection in the polished doors. David's right hand was in his pocket. His thumb was moving, texting without looking. Marcus filed it away. The doors opened on 18. The hallway was empty. Too empty. No hotel staff. No room service carts. The overhead lights had been dimmed. Marcus's hand moved inside his jacket. "This way," David said, leading them to a double door at the end of the hall. He pushed it open. The conference suite was large. A long mahogany table. Chairs for 20. Richard Hale was already seated at the head, pouring himself a scotch. 2 men Marcus had never seen stood by the window. Broad shoulders, rigid posture, hands clasped in front of them. Private security. Or worse. And in the corner, sitting in a leather chair with his legs crossed, was a man with ice blue eyes and a shaved head. He wore a charcoal suit and no tie. His fingernails were manicured. His presence filled the room like smoke. Marcus knew who he was before anyone said a word. Sergei Volkov. "Victoria," Hale said, gesturing to a chair. "Please, sit." Victoria didn't sit. She looked at Volkov, then at Hale, then at David. "What is this, Richard?" "This is a conversation we should have had months ago." Hale sipped his scotch. "About the future of the company, and your place in it, or lack thereof." "You're staging a coup at a hotel dinner." "I'm offering you an exit, a generous one. Sign the transfer documents tonight, and you walk away with 50 million and your reputation intact." "And if I don't?" Volkov spoke for the first time. His accent was thick, but his English was precise. "Then the conversation becomes less pleasant, Ms. Chen." Marcus stepped forward. Every eye in the room shifted to him. "She's not signing anything," Marcus said. Hale waved his hand. "This doesn't concern you. You're the help." "David." Victoria's voice was controlled, but her hands were trembling at her sides. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like." David's mask cracked. For 1 second, just one, Marcus saw the real David Park. The resentment, the calculation, the hunger. "V, this is business. It's always been business. I trusted you. And I waited, for years. I waited for your father to see me. I waited for the board to recognize me. I built half this company from the legal framework up. And what did I get? A title, a corner office. While you inherited everything because your last name was Chen. So you sold me out." "I secured my future. You should secure yours. Sign the papers, Victoria." Volkov stood. He adjusted his cuffs. "We have been patient, Miss Chen. Patience has a limit." The two men by the window moved forward. Marcus tracked them both. His hand was on the Glock. The math was brutal. 2 hostiles visible. Volkov possibly armed. Hale, an unknown variable. David, a wild card. And somewhere in this hotel, more of Volkov's people were waiting. "Marcus," Victoria whispered, "I see them." "What do we do?" "You stay behind me. No matter what happens, you stay behind me." Volkov smiled. "The bodyguard. David told me about you. A waiter, yes? Playing soldier." He took a step forward. "I have 12 men in this hotel. 2 in the kitchen, 2 in the lobby, 2 on this floor, and 6 more outside. Your sedan with a large man in the shotgun. We know about him, too." Marcus didn't blink. "Then you know I'm not bluffing when I tell you that you've got about 90 seconds before things go very wrong for everyone in this room. You have 1 gun and 1 exit. The odds are not in your favor." "The odds are never in my favor. That's kind of my thing." Marcus pulled the Glock. The 2 hostiles drew their weapons simultaneously. Victoria gasped. "Nobody shoots," Hale shouted, standing up. "This is a negotiation, not a war." "Tell that to your Russian friend," Marcus said, his weapon trained on Volkov. "He brought soldiers to a business meeting. That's not negotiation. That's an ambush." Volkov raised a hand. His men held position. "You are interesting," Volkov said to Marcus. "But you are outnumbered. And your friend outside. My men are approaching his vehicle right now." Marcus touched his earpiece. "D, status." 3 seconds of silence. Then Darnell's voice, calm as a Sunday morning. "2 tangos approaching from the north side. I see them. You want me to say hello?" "Hold position. Don't engage unless they do." "Copy." Volkov's eyebrow twitched. He hadn't expected communication. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus said. "Victoria and I are going to walk out of this room. We're going to take the elevator to the lobby. We're going to leave, and nobody is going to stop us." "And why would I allow that?" Volkov asked. "Because I downloaded every financial record linking you to Aegis Corp. Every offshore transfer, every shell company, every wire. It's on an encrypted drive that's not in this building. If I don't check in within 2 hours, it goes to the FBI, the SEC, and every major news outlet in the country." Silence. Marcus was bluffing. The drive was real, but the dead man's switch wasn't set up. He hadn't had time. But he said it the way he said everything, with the absolute conviction of a man who had stared down death so many times that lying to a Russian arms dealer felt like small talk. Volkov studied him. 10 seconds. 20. The room held its breath. "You are bluffing," Volkov said. "Try me." David stepped forward. "Sergei, let them go. We have the board votes. We don't need her signature tonight."
This can be done legally by Monday." "I don't like loose ends," Volkov said, his eyes still on Marcus.
"I'm not a loose end," Marcus replied. "I'm a consequence. Let us walk, and this stays a business problem. Stop us, and it becomes a federal one." Volkov's jaw worked. Then he sat back down. He picked up Hale's scotch and took a slow sip. "Go," Volkov said. "But understand, Mr. Cole, this is not finished." "It never is." Marcus kept the gun up. He backed toward the door, one hand reaching behind him to guide Victoria. She gripped his jacket. Her fingers were ice cold. They moved through the door, down the hall, into the elevator. Marcus hit the lobby button and stood with his back to the wall, gun at his side. Victoria's composure shattered. She leaned against the elevator wall, her hands covering her face. "David, he was... all this time, he was... Breathe. I can't breathe, Marcus. I can't." "Victoria, look at me." She looked at him. Tears were streaming down her face. "We're alive. We're walking out of here. Focus on that." "They'll come after us." "Yes, they'll take everything." "Not everything." The elevator doors opened. Marcus took her hand and walked her through the lobby, past the piano player, past the smiling concierge, past the guests who had no idea what had happened 18 floors above them. Darnell had the car at the curb, engine running. Marcus opened the back door and Victoria slid in. Marcus got in the front. "Go." Darnell floored it. The sedan screamed away from the peninsula. "Two cars pulled out behind us," Darnell said, checking the mirror. "Black SUVs. Lose them." Darnell cut through an alley, ran a red light, merged onto Lakeshore Drive at 90 miles an hour, and took an exit that put them into the labyrinth of Lower Wacker Drive. The SUVs fell behind. Darnell knew the city. He'd spent 2 days memorizing every turn. 10 minutes later, they were heading north on the expressway. No tail. Clean. Victoria sat in the back seat, shaking. Marcus turned around to look at her. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe. I have a place." "Marcus, everything I built, everything my father left me. David is going to hand it to Volkov on a silver platter." "Not if we move first." "Move how? They have the board, they have the money, they have an army." Marcus reached into his jacket. He pulled out the encrypted drive, small, black, no bigger than a thumb. "They have all that," Marcus said, "but we have this. Every transaction, every name, every account number. Enough to put Volkov, Hale, and David away for decades." Victoria stared at the drive. "You had it the whole time?" "I've been building the case for 2 weeks. I was going to give it to you Monday." David moved the timeline up. "The dead man's switch you told Volkov about." "Doesn't exist. I lied." "You lied to a man who kills people for lying." "I've lied to worse." Victoria took the drive from his hand. She held it like it was the last thing keeping her alive. Because it was. "What now?" she whispered. Marcus looked at Darnell. "We go to the safe house. We contact the FBI on our terms. And then we finish this." Darnell nodded. The highway opened up ahead of them, dark, empty, stretching into the unknown. Victoria leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. One tear slid down her cheek. "Marcus?" "Yeah." "Thank you for being in that diner." Marcus faced forward. The city lights faded behind them. "Thank your father," he said quietly. "He's the one who taught me that some people are worth carrying." The safe house was a cabin in Wisconsin, 2 hours north of the Illinois border. Darnell had rented it 3 days ago,
under a name that didn't belong to anyone real. Cash payment. No ID. The kind of transaction that only worked at places where the owner didn't ask questions, because he had his own reasons not to answer them. They arrived at 1 a.m. Victoria hadn't spoken since the expressway. She sat in the back seat with the encrypted drive in her fist, staring at nothing. Marcus cleared the cabin first. Every room, every closet, every window. Then he came back and opened her door. "We're here." Victoria looked at him. Her mascara had run. Her gown was wrinkled. The woman who had walked into the Peninsula Hotel looking untouchable now looked exactly like what she was, a person who had been betrayed by everyone she loved. "Can you walk?" "I can walk." She got out. Her heels sank into the mud. She kicked them off and walked barefoot across the cold ground and into the cabin without a word. Darnell unloaded the car. He set up a perimeter, motion sensors on the driveway, tripwire on the tree line. Military habits that never went away, no matter how many years you stacked between yourself and the desert. "She okay?" Darnell asked, locking the trunk. "She will be." "And you?" "I'll be okay when my daughter's safe." "Zoe's in Evanston. Nobody knows about Evanston."
Volkov knew about you in your car tonight. He knew about the shotgun. That means they've been watching longer than I thought. Darnell was quiet. Then, "You want me to move Zoe?" "Not yet. If we move her now, and they're watching Miss Dolores, we lead them right to her. For now, she stays. But I need eyes on that house, Dee." "I'll make a call. I know a guy in Milwaukee, former Ranger. Owes me." "Thank you." "Stop thanking me. You carried me out of Mosul with 2 bullets in your vest. We're even about 9 times over." Marcus almost smiled. "Get some sleep. I'll take first watch." "You haven't slept in 3 days." "And I'll sleep on the 4th. Go." Darnell went inside. Marcus sat on the porch steps. The woods were pitch dark and utterly silent. He pulled out his phone and stared at the lock screen. A photo of Zoe at the zoo, laughing at a penguin, ice cream on her nose. He wanted to call her. It was 1:30 a.m. She'd be asleep. He wanted to hear her breathe. He put the phone away. At 3 a.m., Victoria came outside. She had changed out of the gown into a pair of jeans and a flannel shirt she'd found in the closet. Her face was washed. Her eyes were swollen. She sat down next to Marcus on the steps. "You should sleep," he said. "I can't." "Try." "Marcus, I've been lying in that bed for 2 hours doing math. Do you know what it's like to count up every conversation, every dinner, every late night, every secret you ever shared with someone, and realize they were taking notes?" "Yes." She looked at him. "You do?" Aleppo, 2017. We had a local asset, a translator named Fareed. Worked with us for 8 months. Shared meals, shared jokes. My guys loved him. Ramirez taught him to play poker. Marcus paused. Fareed sold our patrol route to an insurgent cell. 3 of my men walked into an ambush because of it. 2 of them died on the street. 1 died in my arms in a stairwell. Victoria was silent. "So yes, I know what it's like." "What happened to Fareed?"
"I found him."
"And?"
Marcus looked at the darkness. "That's not a story for tonight." They sat together in the cold for a while. An owl called somewhere in the trees. Wind moved through the branches.
"I keep thinking about my father," Victoria said. "He built Aegis from nothing. A Korean immigrant with a computer science degree and $40. He coded the first platform in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens. He used to tell me,
"Victoria, the company is not the building. The company is the people. Choose them carefully." She laughed bitterly. I chose David. Your father chose to trust people too. That's not a weakness. It got him kidnapped in Beirut. And he survived, because he also chose to trust me. Victoria turned to face him. Why did you save him? You didn't know him. He was just a name on a briefing sheet, an asset to extract. Why did you carry him 2 miles when your team was dead and nobody was coming? Marcus thought about it. He could have given her the soldier's answer. It was my mission. It was my duty. It was what I was trained to do. But sitting on those steps at 3 a.m, with everything stripped away, he gave her the real answer. Because he showed me a picture. When we were pinned down in that building, waiting for extraction that wasn't coming, your father pulled out his wallet and showed me a photograph of his daughter. College graduation. Big smile. He said, "She's the reason I need to get home." And I looked at that photo and I thought, somebody loves this man. Somebody is waiting for him. And that was enough. Victoria's breath caught. That was me. That was my graduation photo. I know. I've known since the diner. She stared at him. You recognized me? Not your face. Your eyes. Your father's eyes. The way you scanned the room when you walked in. Exits, threats, angles. He did the same thing in Beirut. He wasn't military, but he was sharp. You have his sharpness. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wasn't sure you were really in trouble. Could have been a setup. Could have been someone using James Chen's name to get to me. I needed to see you under pressure. The robbery. The robbery. You didn't run. You didn't scream. You sat in that booth and watched everything with clear eyes. That's when I knew you were his daughter. And that's when I knew the trouble was real. Victoria wiped her eyes. My father was right about you. Your father gave me too much credit. No, he didn't give you enough. She put her hand over his on the step. Her fingers were still cold, but the tremor was gone. Marcus, when this is over, if this ends the way I hope it does, what do you want? What do I want? You've been invisible for 4 years, hiding, working night shifts, living in a 1-bedroom apartment in the worst neighborhood in Chicago. You're capable of so much more. What do you actually want? Marcus looked at the sky, stars he couldn't see in the city. I want to walk Zoe to school without checking parked cars. I want to make her pancakes on a Saturday morning without a gun in the drawer next to the spatula. I want her to grow up thinking the world is safe, even if I know it isn't. He paused. That's it. That's the whole list. Victoria squeezed his hand. Then let's end this. Tell me the plan. Marcus had been building the plan in his head for days. He laid it out for her now, piece by piece. The encrypted drive had everything: bank records, wire transfers, shell company registrations, and most importantly, communications between David Park and Volkov's financial lieutenant. But taking it to the FBI wasn't enough. The Bureau would investigate for months. Volkov had lawyers. Hale had political connections. David would flip and cut a deal. By the time indictments came down, Victoria would be dead, or the company would be gutted. They needed to force the hand, all of them, at once. We call a board meeting, Marcus said. Emergency session, Monday morning. You invoke your authority as CEO under the corporate charter. You still have that power until they officially vote you out. Hale will try to block it. He can't. Not if you frame it as a financial emergency disclosure. SEC regulations require the CEO to report suspected fraud directly to the board. If you call the meeting under that provision, Hale has to attend, or he's in violation. So does David. And then what? I present the evidence? No. I present the evidence. You stay in your role as CEO. You chair the meeting. I brief the board as your head of security, reporting a threat to the corporation. It depersonalizes it. It's not a betrayal story. It's a corporate security breach.
The board won't care about the difference. The board will care when they realize their personal liability exposure is in the hundreds of millions. If Volkov's money laundering comes out and they knew, or should have known, they're all going to prison. Self-preservation is the most reliable motivator in any boardroom. Victoria nodded slowly. And Volkov? That's the other piece. I contact the FBI myself, not through channels. I have a name, an agent I worked with during my military service. She handled counterintelligence in the Midwest. If she's still active, she'll move fast. If she trusts you? She trusts me. I gave her Fareed. Victoria looked at him. Marcus didn't elaborate. The timing has to be perfect, he continued. The board meeting starts at 9 a.m. The FBI moves on Volkov simultaneously. If we get it right, Hale and David walk into that boardroom thinking they're about to finish their coup, and instead, they walk into a trap. What about David's phone? He'll warn Volkov the second he suspects anything. Darnell handles David's communications. We jam his phone before the meeting. He won't know until he's already in the room. And Volkov's men? He said he had 12 in the city. He was lying. He had 6 at the hotel. 2 outside, 4 upstairs. That's a skeleton crew, which means he's stretched thin. Most of his real muscle is in New York. If the FBI moves fast enough, his Chicago operation folds. Victoria exhaled. This is insane. This is the only way. And if it doesn't work? Then I get you and Zoe on a plane to somewhere that doesn't have an extradition treaty, and we start over. We? Marcus caught the word a beat too late. He looked at her. I meant you. I get you on a plane. You said we. Silence. The kind that holds too much. Get some sleep, Victoria. We have a long weekend. She didn't push it. She stood up, brushed off the flannel, and walked to the door. She stopped with her hand on the frame. Marcus, for what it's worth, my father's photograph, the one he showed you in Beirut. He kept it in his wallet until the day he died, and on the back he had written something. I found it when I was cleaning out his things. What did it say? The man who carried me home. Find him. She went inside. Marcus sat on the steps until dawn. Saturday and Sunday were preparation. Pure, methodical, relentless preparation. Marcus called his FBI contact, Special Agent Diana Reeves, Chicago Field Office. She answered on the 3rd ring. This number was supposed to be decommissioned, she said. It was. I reactivated it. Cole, I heard you were dead. Not dead, just quiet. What do you need? I need a federal raid on a Bratva operation in Chicago. Monday morning, 9 a.m., simultaneous with a corporate board meeting at Aegis Corp. I have evidence of money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. That's a hell of a Monday. I have the financials. $200 million in dirty transfers, shell company registrations, communications between a corporate insider and Volkov's people. It's clean, Diana. Airtight. Volkov himself? In Chicago, or he was 2 days ago. He'll move if he smells it coming, so the window is tight. You know I can't authorize a raid on your word alone. You authorized the Fareed operation on my word alone. That was different. You were active duty. You had institutional backing. I have a CEO who's willing to testify. I have documentary evidence. And I have 48 hours before these people either kill her or dismantle a publicly traded company. Silence on the line. Marcus could hear her thinking. "Send me the files. Encrypted. I'll review tonight. If it's what you say it is, I can have a team in position by Monday morning."
"Thank you, Diana."
"Don't thank me yet. If this blows up, I'm telling everyone you blackmailed me."
"Fair." He sent the file.
Darnell set up the communication jam, a portable signal disruptor small enough to fit in a briefcase. It would kill cell service within 50 feet for approximately 10 minutes. That was the window. Victoria spent Sunday preparing her board presentation. She sat at the cabin's kitchen table with Marcus's laptop, building a slide deck that was half corporate governance and half criminal indictment. Her hands were steady now. The shock had burned off. What was left was something harder: the focused, cold-blooded determination of a woman who had been raised by an immigrant father who built an empire from nothing and taught her that you never, ever let someone take what you built without a fight. "How does this look?" she asked Marcus, turning the laptop around. He read it. Clean, factual, devastating. "It's good. One change." "What?" "Take David's name off the first 3 slides. Let the financial evidence speak for itself. When the board sees the numbers, they'll ask who authorized the transfers. That's when you show them David's signature. The betrayal lands harder if they reach the conclusion themselves." Victoria stared at him. "You would have been a terrifying lawyer." "I would have been a terrible lawyer. I don't have the patience for billing hours." She almost laughed. It was the closest to lightness either of them had felt in days. Sunday night. The cabin was quiet. Darnell was outside running a final perimeter check. Victoria was asleep. Finally, genuinely asleep. Exhaustion winning over fear. Marcus sat at the kitchen table and called Zoe. "Daddy!" Her voice was sunshine. Pure, unfiltered sunshine. "Hey, baby girl, how's Beans?" "Beans threw up on Miss D's sister's rug, and everybody yelled, but I thought it was funny." "That does sound funny." "Daddy, I made you something at school." "Well, not at school because I'm not at school. Miss D's sister helped me. It's a card." "Yeah? What kind of card?" "A come-home card. It says, 'Come home, Daddy,' and I drew a picture of us at the park. And Gerald is there too, but he only has one ear, because that's what he looks like now." Marcus pressed his hand over his eyes. "That sounds beautiful, Zoe." "Are you crying?" "No, I have allergies." "You don't have allergies, Daddy." "I developed them recently." "When are you coming?" "Tomorrow, baby. After tomorrow, I'm coming to get you, and we're going home." "Real promise?" "Real promise. The realest promise I've ever made." "Okay. I love you, Daddy. Gerald loves you too, even with one ear." "I love you both. Go to sleep." "It's only 8:30. "Go to sleep anyway. Sleep is a superpower." "You always say that." "Because it's always true. Good night, baby girl." "Good night, Daddy." He hung up. He sat there for 5 minutes. Then he wiped his face, checked his weapon, and started reviewing the plan one final time. Monday morning, 7 a.m. They drove back to Chicago in 2 cars. Darnell in the sedan, Marcus and Victoria in a rental. The city was gray and cold. Lake Michigan looked like steel. Traffic moved the way Chicago traffic always moved, angry and inevitable. "You ready?" Marcus asked. "No," Victoria said. "Let's do it anyway." They arrived at Aegis Corp at 8:15. The building was already alive. Employees streaming through the lobby, elevators humming, coffee being poured in break rooms on 40 floors. Victoria walked through the front door like she owned the building. Because she did. She wore a navy suit, her hair pulled back, her jaw set. She looked at every person she passed. She smiled at the receptionist. She held the elevator for a junior analyst who was running late. Then she rode to 60 and stepped into her office. David Park was waiting. "V, I've been calling you all weekend." His face was perfect. Concern, worry, relief. "After the dinner, I didn't know if you were... Are you okay?" "I'm fine, David." "Where did you go? Your phone was off. I was terrified." "I needed time to think." Of course. David touched her arm. "Listen, about Friday night, Hale ambushed us. I had no idea Volkov would be there. I swear to you." Victoria looked at his hand on her arm. She looked at his face. The face she had trusted for 15 years. "I called an emergency board meeting," she said. 9 o'clock. David blinked. "What? Why?" "Financial irregularities. SEC disclosure requirements. You know the protocol, David. You wrote it." "Victoria, this isn't the time. After Friday, we need to regroup, not provoke the board. Hale will use this against you." "Hale will be there. So will you. So will everyone." Listen to me. The meeting is at 9, David. Please make sure the conference room is ready." She walked past him into her office and closed the door. David stood in the hallway. His expression shifted. The mask flickered. He reached for his phone. No signal. He tried again. Nothing. He walked toward the window, held the phone up. Dead. Darnell, 2 floors below, held the signal disruptor steady and checked his watch. 8:32 a.m. The window was open. Marcus was in the security office, watching every camera in the building. He saw David try his phone 4 times. He saw David walk to his office and pick up the landline. Marcus had already rerouted David's desk phone to an internal loop. It would ring, but it wouldn't connect outside the building. David was cut off. At 8:55, the board members filed into the 61st floor conference room. 12 seats, 11 filled. Richard Hale arrived last, looking confident, his silver hair freshly barbered, a folded newspaper under his arm like this was any other Monday. David sat 2 chairs from Victoria. Marcus noticed his leg bouncing under the table. Victoria stood at the head of the room. Marcus stood by the door, arms crossed. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Victoria began. "I've called this meeting under Section 14.3 of our corporate charter. Mandatory disclosure of a material financial threat." "What threat?" Hale asked, leaning back. $212 million in unauthorized transfers from Aegis Corp accounts over the past 18 months. Routed through shell companies in Cyprus, the Cayman Islands, and Dubai. Terminating in accounts controlled by foreign nationals with known ties to organized crime. The room went cold. Hale's newspaper slid off his lap. He didn't pick it up. "These transfers were authorized using CFO-level credentials," Victoria continued. "But they were coordinated by someone else. Someone inside this room." Every head turned. Eyes darted. The silence was suffocating. David's legs stopped bouncing. His face was stone. "Marcus," Victoria said. Marcus stepped forward. He connected a laptop to the conference room display. The screen lit up with financial documents, transfer records, account numbers, timestamps. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, "my name is Marcus Cole. I'm Ms. Chen's head of security. Over the past 3 weeks, I've conducted an internal investigation into what I believed was a corporate security breach. What I found was something much larger." He clicked through the slides. Methodical, factual, devastating. Transfer records with David Park's digital signature. Email exchanges between David and a Bratva financial operative. Shell company registrations listing David as a hidden beneficiary. And finally, the recording from the parking garage.
David's voice, clear as a bell. "Tell Hale I'll handle it." David shot to his feet. "This is fabricated. Victoria, you can't be serious. This man, this security guard, is feeding you lies to protect his own position." "Sit down, David," Victoria said. "I will not sit down. I have served this company for 15 years. You have stolen $200 million from this company and funneled it to a Russian criminal organization. Sit down." David looked around the table. He was searching for allies. He found none. The board members were staring at the screen with the expressions of people calculating their own prison sentences. Hale stood. "I think we all need to take a breath here. These are serious allegations, and they deserve proper investigation, not a kangaroo court." "I agree," Victoria said, "which is why I contacted the FBI." The blood drained from Hale's face. "At this moment," Victoria continued, checking her watch, "Special Agent Diana Reeves and a federal task force are executing search warrants on your residence, your office, and 3 properties linked to Sergei Volkov in the Chicago metropolitan area." Marcus's phone buzzed. He looked at it. A text from Diana Reeves. "Volkov in custody. Hale's office sealed. It's done." Marcus looked up. "Volkov is in federal custody. His Chicago operation has been shut down." The conference room erupted. Board members shouting, lawyers being called. Hale gripping the table like a man watching the floor fall away. David Park didn't shout. He didn't argue. He looked at Victoria with an expression that was almost impressed. "You played me," David said quietly. "All weekend. You played me." "No, David. I grieved you. There's a difference." David closed his eyes. When he opened them, there was nothing left. No mask, no charm, no performance. Just a hollow man in an expensive suit. "Your father should have given me the company," David whispered. "I earned it." "My father gave you his trust. You earned nothing." 2 FBI agents entered the conference room. They walked directly to David. One of them held handcuffs. "David Park, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." David didn't resist. He held out his wrists. As they cuffed him, he looked at Marcus. "The waiter," David said, a bitter half-smile. "Beaten by a waiter." "Beaten by a father," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference." They led David out. Hale followed 10 minutes later in a separate set of handcuffs, protesting loudly about his lawyer and his rights and the calls he was going to make. The conference room emptied slowly. Board members shuffled out, shell-shocked, already whispering to their attorneys. Victoria stood at the head of the empty table. Her hands were flat on the surface. Her head was bowed. Marcus waited by the door. "It's over?" she asked without looking up. "The hard part is." "This doesn't feel like winning." "It never does. Winning just means you're still standing." Victoria lifted her head. Her eyes were dry. Whatever tears she had left for David Park, she had already spent them in a cabin in Wisconsin. "Call your daughter," she said. "Go get her." Marcus didn't need to be told twice. He walked out of the conference room, took the elevator to the lobby, and stepped out into the Chicago morning. The sun was out. For the first time in weeks, it wasn't raining. He pulled out his phone and dialed Miss Dolores. "Miss D, it's me. I'm coming to get my girl." The drive to Evanston took 47 minutes. Marcus drove 10 miles over the speed limit the entire way and didn't care. The Glock was still in his waistband. The encrypted drive was in Victoria's hands. The FBI had Volkov, Hale, and David Park in separate holding cells downtown. And none of that mattered as much as the fact that in less than an hour, he was going to hold his daughter. He parked in front of Miss Dolores's sister's house, a yellow bungalow with a chain-link fence and the garden gnome that had seen better decades. He didn't even kill the engine before the front door flew open. Zoe came out running. She was wearing mismatched socks, a t-shirt with a unicorn on it, and her braids were half undone because Miss Dolores's sister didn't have the technique down. She was holding Gerald, the one-eared elephant, in one hand and a homemade card in the other, and she was running so fast her backpack bounced off her shoulders. "Daddy!" Marcus dropped to his knees on the sidewalk. She hit him like a small, beautiful freight train. Arms around his neck, face buried in his chest, Gerald smushed between them. He held her. He held her so tight his arm shook. He pressed his face into her hair and breathed her in. Strawberry shampoo and playground dirt and something that smelled like maple syrup. "You came," Zoe said into his jacket. "You really came." "I promised, didn't I?" "You promised. And Daddy keeps his promises." She pulled back and held up the card. It was construction paper, folded crooked, with crayon drawings of two stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands in front of a house. Gerald was there too, faithfully one-eared. Across the top, in big wobbly letters, "Come home, Daddy." Marcus took the card. He looked at it for a long time. "This is the best thing anyone has ever given me," he said. His voice cracked, and he didn't try to hide it. "Are you crying again?" "Allergies." "Daddy?" "Fine, I'm crying. You got me." Zoe wiped his cheek with her small hand. "It's okay to cry. Mrs. Patterson says crying means your heart is working." "Mrs. Patterson is a wise woman." "She also says you should eat more vegetables." "Mrs. Patterson should mind her business." Zoe laughed. That laugh. That sound that had kept him alive through 4 years of hiding, through burned coffee and grease-stained aprons and nights when the walls of his apartment felt like they were closing in. That laugh was the reason for everything. Miss Dolores came out on the porch, arms crossed, eyes wet. "Marcus Cole, you have exactly 30 seconds to explain what in God's name has been going on before I call your mama's spirit down from heaven to whoop your behind." "Miss D, I owe you an explanation. I owe you about 100 explanations." "You owe me a new set of nerves is what you owe me. I've been worried sick." Marcus stood up with Zoe in his arms. He walked to the porch and kissed Miss Dolores on the forehead. "It's over," he said. "Whatever it was, it's over. And I can never repay you for what you did." "You can repay me by never scaring me like that again." "Deal." "And by fixing my kitchen faucet. It's been dripping for 3 months." "I'll fix it this weekend." Miss Dolores touched his face. Her eyes were searching, the way a mother's eyes search, even when she's not your mother. "You're a good man, Marcus. Don't let anybody tell you different. Not even yourself." He loaded Zoe into the car. Gerald got the seatbelt treatment. The come-home card went on the dashboard. They drove south, toward the city. Zoe talked the entire way, about Beans the cat, about Miss Dolores's sister's cooking, about a dream she'd had where Gerald could fly. Marcus listened to every word like it was oxygen. Halfway home, Zoe got quiet. She was looking out the window at the lake. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "Were you in trouble?" Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. 7 years old, too smart for her own good. "I was helping someone who was in trouble." "Like a superhero?" "No, like a person. Sometimes people need help, and if you can help them, you should." "Even if it's scary?" "Especially if it's scary." "Were you scared?" Marcus thought about the warehouse, the Peninsula Hotel, Volkov's ice blue eyes, a gun aimed at Victoria's head. David Park's smile that hid a knife. "Yeah, baby, I was scared."
"But you did it anyway."
"I did it anyway." Zoe nodded, processing this the way children process big truths, not with analysis, but with something closer to faith.
"That's what brave means," she said. "Mrs. Patterson says brave isn't when you're not scared. Brave is when you're scared and you do it anyway."
Marcus looked at her in the mirror, his daughter, his whole world. Mrs. Patterson is right. They got home to the apartment on Ashland Avenue. It was exactly as they'd left it. Small, cramped, the radiator clanking, the neighbor's television bleeding through the walls. But the drawing was still on the wall. "My daddy is the bravest." Zoe dropped her backpack and ran to her room to reunite Gerald with his stuffed animal friends. Marcus stood in the kitchen and looked at the apartment. 4 years in this place. 4 years of hiding. His phone rang. Victoria.
"How is she?"
"She's perfect. She's introducing her stuffed elephant to a stuffed giraffe. It's a whole diplomatic summit." Victoria laughed. It was a real laugh, the first one he'd heard from her that didn't have grief underneath it.
"The FBI wants a full deposition from you, tomorrow. Agent Reeves is requesting you by name."
"I'll be there."
"Marcus, the board voted unanimously. Hale and David's seats are vacated. The emergency audit is underway. It's going to be a mess for months, but the company is secure."
"Good."
"And I want to talk to you about what comes next. For you. For us. For the company, I mean."
"We'll talk."
"Okay."
A pause.
"Marcus?"
"Yeah."
"Thank you. For everything. For the diner, for the cabin, for standing in front of a bullet that was meant for me."
"Nobody stood in front of any bullets. I just stood in the right place."
"You know what I mean."
"I know what you mean. Good night, Victoria."
"Good night, Marcus."
He hung up. He made Zoe dinner. Mac and cheese from a box, the kind with the powdered cheese that she loved and he pretended to disapprove of. They ate at the kitchen table. She told him about every single day he'd missed, in exhaustive, wonderful detail. He put her to bed at 8:30, read her the dragon story, twice, as always. Tucked Gerald under her arm.
"Daddy?"
"Yeah?"
"Don't go invisible again, okay?"
The word hit him like a fist. Invisible. She didn't know what he'd been doing for 4 years, but she'd found the exact word anyway. Children see everything. "I won't, baby girl. I promise."
"Real promise?"
"The realest one there is." She closed her eyes. She was asleep in 3 minutes. Marcus walked to the living room. He sat down on the couch. He looked at the duffel bag in the closet, still open from when he'd pulled the Glock. He could see the edge of the photograph inside. Ramirez, Davis, Kowalski, smiling in the desert. He got up. He took the photograph out. He held it under the light. 3 men. Brothers. Dead because a man they trusted sold them for money. Marcus had carried that photograph for 6 years. He had carried the guilt longer. He had told himself that disappearing was penance, that if he couldn't save them, he didn't deserve to be seen. He had made himself invisible because he believed that was what he owed the dead. But the dead don't collect debts. The living do. He put the photograph on the shelf next to Zoe's drawing. 2 images, 2 truths. The men he couldn't save, and the daughter who saved him. He sat back down on the couch, and for the first time in weeks, he slept. 6 months later, Marcus pulled into the parking lot of PS 117 at 3:15 on a Friday afternoon. He was driving a new car. Not flashy, a sensible Honda Accord. but it was reliable, and it had working heat, and Zoe's booster seat in the back didn't smell like mildew anymore. He was wearing a dark blazer over a button-down shirt, no tie. Victoria had tried to get him to wear ties for 3 months before accepting defeat. His phone buzzed. A text from Darnell. Milwaukee office is up and running. First client signed today. You owe me a steak dinner. Marcus smiled. Darnell had opened a private security consulting firm, Hayes & Cole Security Solutions. Marcus was the silent partner. They specialized in corporate protection and threat assessment, and they exclusively hired veterans. 6 employees so far, all former military. All of them people who understood what it meant to come home from a war and find that nobody had saved a place for you. Another text from Victoria. Board approved the Second Chance Initiative. Funding starts next quarter. James Chen Foundation will administer. Call me when you're free. The Second Chance Initiative. Victoria's idea, built on Marcus's blueprint. A program to employ veterans in corporate security positions across Aegis Corp's global offices. Training, placement, benefits, mental health support. The kind of thing that could change hundreds of lives. Marcus had resisted putting his name on it. Victoria had insisted.
These people need to see your face, Marcus. They need to know that someone who looks like them, who lived like them, came out the other side.
I'm not a poster boy.
You're not a poster boy. You're proof.
He had let it go. She was stubborn in a way that reminded him of her father, and she was usually right, which was more annoying than the stubbornness. The school bell rang. Kids poured out of the building in a flood of backpacks and shouts and chaotic joy. Marcus leaned against the car and scanned the crowd. Old habit. He didn't check for threats anymore. Not here. Not since Volkov's network had been dismantled, and the last of his operatives had been deported or arrested. But he still watched. Some wiring never disconnects. Zoe emerged from the front doors with 2 friends, talking animatedly about something that required extensive hand gestures. Her braids were fresh. Miss Dolores had come over that morning, as she did every week. She was wearing the necklace Victoria had given her for her birthday, a small silver elephant pendant that made Zoe shriek with delight when she opened it. She saw Marcus. Her face lit up.
Daddy!
She ran over and threw her arms around him. 8 years old now, getting taller, still gap-toothed, still the center of his universe.
How was school? Amazing! Tyler ate glue again. Mrs. Patterson gave us extra recess. And I got an A on my science project.
The one about elephants?
The one about elephants. I told you it would be great.
You did tell me. I should have listened.
You should always listen to me, Daddy. I'm very smart.
You are terrifyingly smart. Get in the car. They drove to Rosie's all-night grill. It was 3:45 in the afternoon, not Rosie's peak hours, which were still the dead-of-night shifts that attracted insomniacs, cab drivers, and the lost. But Rosie had started opening for lunch 6 months ago, after Marcus paid off the building's back taxes and covered the health code renovations that had been hanging over Rosie's head for years. He hadn't bought the building. That felt wrong. Instead, he'd set up a trust, funded by his salary from Aegis, that covered the diner's operating costs. Rosie would own Rosie's until she decided not to. That was the deal. They walked in. The bell jingled. Rosie was behind the counter, arguing with the new dishwasher about water temperature. She looked up and her whole face changed.
There's my girl! Zoe, baby, get over here!
Zoe ran behind the counter and hugged Rosie. Rosie kissed the top of her head and slid a piece of cherry pie across the counter without being asked. "You spoiler," Marcus said, sitting down on his usual stool.
Somebody has to. You feed that child nothing but boxed macaroni.
That is slander, It's the truth, and you know it. Coffee?
Please. Rosie poured him a cup. The coffee was still burnt. Some things didn't change, and Marcus was grateful for it. He sat there, watching Zoe eat pie and tell Rosie about the elephant project, and he felt something he hadn't felt in years. He searched for the word. Settled. He felt settled. Not safe. Marcus knew better than to believe in safe. Not happy. Happiness was a moving target, and he'd learned to stop chasing it. But settled. Present. Here. Not hiding, not running, not invisible. The bell jingled. Victoria walked in. She was wearing jeans and a white blouse. Her hair was down. She looked nothing like a CEO, and everything like a woman who had driven across town on a Friday afternoon because she wanted to. "Victoria!" Zoe shouted, pie crumbs flying. She jumped off the stool and ran to hug her. Victoria crouched down and held Zoe tight. "Hey, sweetheart, how's Gerald?" "Gerald got a new ear. Miss D made it from a sock. He looks weird, but I love him." That's the best kind of love. Victoria stood and walked to the counter. She sat on the stool next to Marcus. "Coffee?" Rosie asked, already pouring. "Thank you, Rosie." They sat side by side, Marcus and Victoria, drinking terrible coffee in a diner on the south side of Chicago, where everything had started. "Board meeting went well," Victoria said. "The audit's clean. New CFO starts Monday. And Agent Reeves called. David's cooperating. Full testimony against Volkov in exchange for a reduced sentence." "How reduced?" 12 years instead of 30. He got off easy. He lost everything. The career, the reputation, the future he thought he was stealing. 12 years in a cell is just the paperwork. The real punishment is knowing he did it to himself. Marcus sipped his coffee. "And Hale?" 25 years. No deal. He refused to cooperate. His lawyer is appealing, but Reeves says it won't go anywhere. The evidence is too strong. Good. Volkov got 40 RICO charges plus the money laundering. His entire U.S. network is finished. Marcus nodded. He didn't feel triumph. He never did after something like this. He felt relief, which was quieter and harder to hold on to, but infinitely more honest. "There's one more thing," Victoria said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. She set it on the counter. "What's that?" "Open it." Marcus opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. Old, creased, faded. He recognized it instantly. It was James Chen, sitting in the back of a military helicopter, wrapped in the thermal blanket, looking shell-shocked, but alive. And next to him, holding an IV bag above his head with one hand, was a younger Marcus Cole. Dirty, bleeding, exhausted, but alive. Marcus stared at the photo. He hadn't known anyone had taken it. "Where did you get this?" "Agent Reeves. It was in a classified file that was declassified last month as part of the investigation. She thought you should have it." Marcus held the photograph. His thumb traced the edge. In the picture, he was 28 years old. He still had all his friends. He still believed the world made sense. "That man doesn't exist anymore," Marcus said. "Yes, he does." Victoria put her hand over his. "He's sitting right here. He just pours coffee now." Marcus laughed. A real laugh, full and deep and unguarded. Rosie looked up from the kitchen and raised an eyebrow. Zoe looked over from her pie and grinned. "Daddy's laughing," Zoe announced. "That means it's a good day." "It is a good day, baby girl." Victoria leaned her shoulder against his. It was a small gesture, barely a touch, but it carried the weight of everything they had been through. The diner, the robbery, the betrayal,
The warehouse, the cabin, the boardroom. Two people who had been broken by the world and had found, not wholeness, but something close enough to build on.
Marcus?
Yeah?
I'm not your boss anymore.
The board appointed a new security director last week. I know. I recommended him.
So what are you now?
Marcus looked at Zoe. He looked at the diner. He looked at the photograph of a young soldier holding an IV bag for a stranger because it was the right thing to do. I'm a father, he said, and apparently a silent partner in a security firm that doesn't have any clients yet.
You have one client?
Who?
Aegis Corp just signed a 3-year contract with Hayes & Cole Security Solutions. Darnell and I finalized it this morning.
Marcus turned to look at her. You went behind my back.
I went around your stubbornness. There's a difference.
Victoria.
You can yell at me, or you can say thank you. Pick one.
He shook his head. He looked at the counter. He picked up his coffee. Thank you.
You're welcome.
They sat in silence for a while. The good kind of silence. The kind that doesn't need to be filled, because everything important has already been said. Marcus buckled Zoe in. Victoria got in the passenger side. He stood for a moment outside the car, looking back at Rosie's. The neon sign buzzed in the window. Open 24 hours. The same sign that had been on the night 3 men with masks kicked the door open and changed his life. Inside, Rosie was yelling at the dishwasher again. The coffee was burning on the warmer. Everything was exactly the same. And nothing was the same at all. Marcus got in the car. He looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror. She was telling Victoria about Gerald's surgical history with the gravity of a medical professional. He looked at Victoria. She was listening like it was the most important story in the world. He started the engine. Marcus Cole had spent 4 years being invisible, hiding in plain sight, convincing himself that the world was safer if no one knew his name. But the world didn't need him invisible. His daughter didn't need him invisible. And the woman sitting next to him, the daughter of the man he'd carried out of a burning building in Beirut, hadn't searched for 2 years to find a ghost. She had searched for a man. And the man she found, the one who poured burnt coffee at 2 a.m, who made chocolate chip pancakes on Saturdays, who read the dragon story twice every night, who stood between a bullet and a stranger because it was right. That man was enough. Marcus Cole drove his daughter and Victoria Chen through the streets of Chicago on a Friday afternoon, with the windows down and the radio on, and the sun doing something it hadn't done in a long time. Shining. He was done being invisible. He was done rumming. He was done paying a debt the dead never asked for. Marcus Cole wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't a spy. He wasn't a waiter. He was a father. And that was the most powerful thing a man could be.